All right, I now call to order the May 20th, 2020 Facilities Committee meeting of the Belton Independent School Board of Trustees. Is Sue with us today? No. We are meeting this evening under the authority of Texas Government Code Section 551.045 and with the authority of the Governor's Office via video conference to advance the public health goal of limiting face-to-face meetings, slow the spread of coronavirus COVID-19. I'd like to thank our administration and staff for making the technology possible for the committee to meet in this manner. This meeting is being live streamed on the board's YouTube channel and recorded. The recording will be made available to the public. Additionally, members of the public who seek to exercise their right under the state to address the committee on an item on the agenda for tonight's meeting have had the ability to do so in the manner listed on the notice for this meeting. Do we have any?
We do not. No comments were submitted.
All right. Oh, as I mentioned a moment ago, to comment on an item and agenda for today's Facilities Committee meeting, members of the public were instructed to submit their comments and to Elizabeth, and we do not have any. So let me go back, find my script. And I don't know why, but once Jeff logged on, I can hear a bunch of interference. I don't know what that's all about.
I think we got it fixed now.
Okay. Just a second. Here we go. All right. So first thing on our list is we're going to review and discuss our long-term facilities planning. It looks like we've got presenters here. Jared is here. What about Robert? Is he at the golf course yet? Robert's here. Hadn't quite made it there yet. All right, so Dr. Muller and Jared, who wants to go first?
I believe Dr. Muller's going to open.
Yeah, I'll just give you a brief overview and I'll quickly turn it over to Jared. But the capital projects list that he's going to review has been around for a while. It's been around since 2015. And it's something that O'Connor Robertson prepared as a formal document which provides an overview of desired capital projects. And along with the project, there's concept drawings that have been generated by O'Connor Robertson and anticipated costs associated with each of the projects. It was updated in 2018. And so a number of projects that were on the list have been completed. The renovation of Tiger Field is one of those, the track and the turf. The music classroom addition and the gym at Lakewood is another one, the capital project that was on the list and has been completed. Pittenger Fine Arts Center upgrade is another example. And then there are two that are currently underway, the orchestra addition at Belton High School and the playground equipment enhancements that is in its preliminary stages, at least in terms of concept and scope and getting ready to put that out for bid. So this is really an opportunity to review the capital projects list and begin a discussion on equity needs for the district and growth issues. So I believe what we'd like to do this evening is to have Jared go through the list and then come back and spend a little bit more time talking about two particular items in this list, which is the natatorium and some CTE issues, career and technology education issues. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jared.
Thank you, Dr. Muller. And we could, of course, spend as much time or as little time on this as we want. There's only 50 pages of information, so we'll kind of click through it pretty fast. But I would echo Dr. Muller's comments that these projects have really have a history with Belton. They're ideas that have been pulled from current and previous board members, previous and current superintendents, and have kind of evolved over time. And this list that you have here that's generated for May is an update to the February report. And then I've appended, there were a couple items in discussions with Dr. Smith and Dr. Muller that I pulled forward from the 2018 report. And so those are at the end. And really the goal, and I'll hit these at a high level of kind of the concept of the project and maybe where they stand, and kind of move forward from there. So we'll click through those pretty fast. So if you want to advance to the next page. First project is the district warehouse facility. So this is one of the projects that we toured here recently at the northeast corner of the administration site, currently supporting the warehouse. And so there's been discussion, multiple factors of either demolishing the whole thing and putting in a parking lot, or demolishing part of it and maintaining some of the existing facilities for New Tech High School. And it really, no decision has been made, but I believe Ty had indicated that one, alignment of dollars with students, this wasn't most impactful. So it's in effect been shelved at this point. If you want to go to the next slide. This is the district-wide playground improvements, and this is one that has had 2 projects come from it. The first one was implemented last summer, which provided accessible routes to the playground equipment, and then we have the second round that is currently in design, currently ongoing. And so ultimately what we had identified, and you'll see that there are 5 elements there that we really evaluated across the district and really worked to create a phased approach to allow accessibility and playground equipment to come up to a standard throughout the district. So if you want to go to the next page, this was the schedule that was presented, and ultimately by Dr. Battershell and then by the board over the last couple months have approved the kind of part A, a segment of part B, and then the additional swings that are the $2.1 million project that are moving forward. So that is underway as we speak. If you can go to the next one. Third project is one of the topics that Dr. Muller had indicated is in essence addressing growth. And so this is addressing one of the pinch points of growth in the south corridor of the school. And so we started and had presented this at one of the previous facility committee meetings, that how do we address growth? What is the impact if we do an addition? How does that look long-term for the facility? So this really steps through the existing building of Chisholm Trail, what the anticipated need is for growth and how long that would address. And then if you want to go to the next page. And then we started looking at potential options here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 really represent option 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got to that right to that breach of, where would a building addition go? Is it in multiple locations? How does that affect the site? And ultimately waiting on a direction of, yes, this is something that we want to pursue further, or no, we want to look at another strategy to address growth. The next one.
Hey, Jared, I've got a quick question on that.
Yes, sir.
Trail. If I remember correctly, didn't we order some portables to go in there, 4 portables?
I'll let David speak to that specifically. I know portables were given, and he and I kind of talked about location, and I'm not sure exactly the timing and those things.
Yeah, so Ty, to answer your question, we do have 2 portables that are on order now. There will be a total of 4 classrooms with restrooms. And we're actually currently putting in the sanitary sewer line for those right now. And then I'm going to be meeting with Aries Building on Monday for a site visit. And I would think probably 5 or 6 weeks we'll have those on site.
Good. Okay. Thanks, David.
Uh-huh.
And so then we'll go on to the next page, next project, which is about the Northgate site. And so this came down to the question from the developer of what to do with that 0.963 acre site that you see in the top diagram that's kind of in the pink. And we wanted to come down to the question of whether or not it was impactful to the future layout of the building. And so you'll see at the bottom of this page is a diagram showing the current prototype and how that would potentially fit on the site. And if you go to the next page, there are 2 additional examples that represent either a more condensed configuration in a single-story concept. At the bottom is a 2-story concept, and this gets into the split of grade levels. And then the next page then indicates a even denser 2-story concept where grade levels are literally split half up, half down in this scenario. So there are strategies and that the site could be workable with or without that property. And the district was looking towards a 2-story concept. And at the last facilities committee meeting, there was discussion about going and touring those projects to see what that looks and feels like, different than the Charter Oak prototype from there.
Jared, if I could just add real quick too, I want to be clear for everyone on this Zoom call today, and also for our public, that there have been no decisions made to build a building there. This is simply a talk about what has been asked for us regarding the land, and the facilities committee was discussing the land use, but we do not have a plan to build a facility here at this time.
Matt, I've got a question on that also. I think Dr. Battershell worked this scenario pretty hard with the local developer, and it looked, I mean, we really worked it for, it seemed like 3 months. You did a lot of local consulting with Ms. Covington, different experts in the area, and it seemed as though we were kind of right at the precipice of making a decision, or maybe bringing this to the board for a decision. Then you know what happened. So where are we in the decision-making processes of yay or nay on allowing that land swap to happen?
Yeah, we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with legal counsel, Robert and myself, talking through some of these things that have been, that were discussed already. And we will be having an update for y'all coming forward here probably in the next month or so. One of the reasons that I wanted Jared to go through all of these is I felt like we had a lot of loose ends. And so we wanted to go over all the projects and then start tying up the loose ends as we move forward.
Thanks.
And I think to Dr. Smith's point, is this really was a feasibility study to determine the impact of the land use, which gets to the next page, which is another feasibility is it was asked of, you know, if this were not an elementary school, what could potentially fit on the site. And so loosely a transportation facility or an auditorium were discussed. And so we evaluated what kind of land area that those would take up. And so this is starting to get to some suggestion of, yes, these 2 items could fit. There's a lot of discussion about whether or not these are future facilities for the district. Would they be located here? But ultimately that they could fit if so desired. So there are other options for this land. So then the next kind of, again, feasibility study element to this is that initial pass. And there's a lot of information here in text about Southwest Elementary School. And it was asked of us is it feasible to rebuild Southwest Elementary School on site? And I'll hit the highlights of the existing building is about 60,000 square feet. It's supporting around 400 students right now. The site is only 9 acres. So when we talk about a new elementary school site, we usually talk about 15 acres. So we need to consider that as we move forward in the impact of phasing and construction and those type of things. A new facility, we've generally been heading in the 80,000 square foot range, about 82,000 square foot and 1 story along the way. And so as you go to the next page, really what these diagrams are starting to show are kind of the end condition of what this could look like. And you'll see then the existing site plan at the top. In the middle is what would happen if you took Charter Oak and placed this on the site. And then the last one is, again, using that dense 2-story concept where students are half up, half down of what that land use looks like. So what you'll see is in all the schemes right now, there is impact to the existing facilities in the way that these are shown. But in the end, you know, the question is, would it be feasible? Could this go on site? The simple answer is yes. However, it's a complicated answer in how you get to that end. And so right now, what our recommendation is if this is something the district would want to pursue, we would recommend a detailed facility assessment to really go through and confirm the program. You know, how does this work in terms of phasing? What's the impact to students? You know, and we've worked similar projects, and I'll give a quick allusion to the Ann Richards School in Austin. We're building 184 square feet in addition to the 120,000 on site on 14 acres. And we use the term nestled when we talk about the proximity of the 2 buildings, because there's a good portion of the building that is literally 20 feet apart from the other one before they finish the new one and demolish the old one. So all in what you want to do, how you want to get there. But in concept, yes, this could be a potential to address growth, increasing capacity roughly from 400 students to 800 students at this site.
What is the cost of what y'all are tearing down there at that Ann Richards site? What is the cost for the demolition of a campus?
So theirs is a little more complicated because they do have hazardous materials in the project. So there's quite a bit of money. As I recall, it's about $750,000 for abatement alone on that facility.
I bet this
it was built in the 60s. Yes, expensive. And then I believe demolition is roughly about the same. So there's a pretty good chunk of change in just removing the old facilities. So any other questions on these? So then if you'll go to the next page. So those projects, really everything before are things that we saw at the last facilities committee meeting or picked up from the previous, like the evaluation of the Northgate site, and then here, then on the Southwest Elementary School site. And so the projects here from page 13 of the PDF on to the end are projects that we've pulled forward from the 2018 facility assessment. And so right now we've not delved deep into these since that time. So the great first one here is career and technical education. And in 2018, we had the opportunity to update our study. That was what ultimately gave the auto tech facility at Belton High School. We had the opportunity then to meet with Stephanie, but we have not had that opportunity at this point to meet with her. So I included this information kind of moving forward. And I would say the summary are really kind of the summary at that time were the 3 points at the bottom is, starting to align enrollment and strong workforce demand, that there's a parallel from beginning to end. There was a goal to bring CTE pathways together. At the time, the biomedical was actually taught on 6th Street. So that has been pulled over to Belton High School. And then that last one that, would be the key right now is the impact of Lake Belton High School, of students being pulled off the Belton High School campus and being able to transition to Lake Belton High School. And what does that start looking like literally for this fall? And then how does that impact facility, class size, number of sections that would need to be evaluated at this point?
So just jumping in real quick on this one. So as I was going through documents and looking at the 2018 report on this, and for a facilities committee, I wanted to make sure we were bringing a couple of these things up again. I know that you hadn't talked about them as a facilities committee in the recent past, but things like this project are pretty important to talk about specifically because of number 3 in what it says there, the impact of the opening of Lake Belton High School on specifically CTE facility needs for the future. So I wanted to make sure that some of these things, and this is a perfect example that Jared brought up first, were brought to the committee again so we can start discussing them as we move forward into the next phases of our facility committee discussion.
And so if you go to the next page, and this would be the next step is, at that time in 2018, we had identified the various programs, the potential impact, and you'll see then that, specific to the construction technology and auto tech, those had translated into real projects and they had gotten completed. And then we were going to come back and look at the other ones. And so the next step, if this is a focus area, would be get back with Stephanie, talk about the future and the impact of those elements, and then again, refresh the needs of what will best support Belton ISD students at Belton High School and Lake Belton High School. Any questions on that one? Okay. So then if you go to the next page, and so these projects here represent, I would say, the next phase of once we had completed some of the initial rounds of projects and evaluation, that the next 4 or 5 projects really start coming into additional needs within the district or addressing equity within the district of some of the older facilities or addressing other needs from this side. So Belton ISD administration, this project was really focused in on addressing their needs of providing secure entry into the facility, potentially adding second public entrance. This would be back to what is the old boardroom location. There was discussion about demolishing the gym, providing an entrance, and making that second. The third was addressing departmental needs of really making sure that everybody's together. A lot of discussion about HR at that particular time. And then finally is just wayfinding throughout the building and making sure that people knew where they were going to go as they started using the facility. A lot of professional development on one side as you shift departments along there. Conceptually, this was a $1 a square foot to refresh some parts of this facility, and whether or not it was palatable to move forward with as a project.
Just to be clear, some of these pieces have been completed over since this time in various ways, but not the whole project. So,
and then the next one is the Belton High School baseball softball field. And so this was I'll say a wish list that was generated shortly after Tiger Stadium was improved with the field, is providing artificial turf at the baseball softball field. And we had generated multiple options here from the infield only to the outfield only or the entire turf. And this is kind of coming back up as we look at Lake Belton High School, that they have artificial turf throughout their competition fields. Next one is the high school tennis courts. And so again, here, this had been on the list for some time and was a priority for the athletics department of addressing how to address tennis throughout the district. And one of the challenges that was identified and to a certain extent remains is middle school tennis is taught at the high school campus. And so one advantage is now Lake Belton High School, it will be opening soon. So we were literally double the number of courts available to Belton ISD on Belton ISD property. So there are 8 courts at Belton High School, and there will be, I believe it's 10 courts at Lake Belton High School is the final number. And so there was consideration here for different configurations of additional courts at Belton High School in the red box, from adding straight up 4 courts, doing some sort of 3 courts and a competition court, or 2 courts and a competition court, or adding a amenities building, you know, restrooms and some changing room or storage there on site. You'll notice item 8C is struck through on this one. And that was the discussion about putting tennis courts at the middle school level. And at the time, it was decided that that wasn't advantageous from an instruction standpoint of having middle school still come to the high school. Was the right decision at that time in moving forward.
So is it okay if we talk a little bit about a couple of these while we move through?
Whatever you need.
I just know from experience, you know, my daughter was a tennis player for a couple of years, and we went to tournaments in the area like Robinson, a couple other places, districts that were quite a bit smaller than ours, and their facilities were wonderful compared to ours. Ours is stuck in what 1985, whenever they built them, or 1995. I mean, they haven't progressed. So to be able to add the 2 courts meant you could have real tournaments, big time tournaments, and then to have a pavilion for kids to shelter under to get out of the sun, bathrooms, concession. I think some of those things are things that we need, you know, when we're talking about the equity thing with Lake Belton High School and Belton High School. It's definitely something that I understand when we open up Lake Belton, the numbers are going to settle a little bit, and we're going to be able to spread out a little bit, but we're going to keep rising as we move along. And this one's been on the list for so long. And it does, you know, our tennis program affects a lot of kids. So I just thought I'd throw those points in there on this deal.
Great. And so then we'll transition to Miller Heights Elementary School. And this was one to address the, I'll call it equity in that point of addressing some of the older facilities at that time and kind of creating a refresh. So you'll see it was originally built in '63, and we had started going through and identifying, you know, specific needs regarding paint, flooring, bathroom, of, in essence, refresh the interiors at that point in a comprehensive way. Is a lot can be done with paint, or a lot could be done with flooring to make it fresh and new. And so this was one that, you know, at $1.5 million to be able to invigorate this campus. And then the final project, or the final one out of the capital improvement project list, is the Tiger Stadium press box. And so this was an opportunity, and there have been changes made since this point, but we had met with Coach Morgan at the time, and he ran us through the press box, and we kind of talked about the goals and priorities. And you'll see there at the kind of top section is what we call a program, where it says home coaches, 10 people, 200 square feet. And we went through and identified the operational changes that have really evolved in sports today, and in particular football, of the individual needs, how you're addressing home and visitors, radio, film, that have become a lot more robust since this was originally built. And so we had identified, you'll see at the bottom, a goal to come back and renovate. And some of those renovations have occurred at this point. But ultimately, what we were concerned with is spending this money will this last for the long term with the quantity of dollars that was proposed being spent? Of addressing ADA concerns, vertical circulation, the things that we would have to get involved with on this one. And so we were concerned that there was not alignment, and a more comprehensive solution, which basically means pulling off the old press box and putting on a new one, would be more what's desired or required to fully fulfill those needs. And so it became this trying to find the balance of where's the right place to spend money and what's the right goal to achieve it. Any questions on that? Okay, so then I believe if you want to go next slide, yep. So then the last one is the swim center report, and in simple, and I'll click through this, but if you go to what is page 9 of this report, so that's page 1, is we had gone through and evaluated the swim center starting in 2015. Of what is it that is needed, what's the challenge of the facility. And so you'll see some information in there about the structural capacity of the facility and some of the operational issues on there. And starting on page 9 becomes how we translate that information into solving that situation. And so to me, there were 2 goals or 3 goals that needed to be addressed here along the way. So goal number 1 was addressing those structural challenges on the building, and how do we do that? And so you'll see there at the top. Number 2 was the swim program was starting to feel an increase at the time. And so there was a balance between not only the Belton High School swimmers, but the young swimmers, as well as our senior swimmers that were using the facility. And there's currently only 2 locker rooms, a boys and a girls, that are supporting that facility. So how do we begin to address that? And then on the next page, you'll see then that there's there's a ranking of those spaces. And then finally, the third one was the duration, construction duration. And from a simple standpoint, the simplest, most economical solution almost takes the pool offline for almost an entire year. And so that became a challenge for the swim season, which is pretty much a year-round sport. There's always something kind of going on with swim. And so how to do that. The subsequent pages from page 12 through the end go through and explore the various options to address the structure, the program. Do you build a second pool? Do you put additional amenities like a dive well? Those type of elements moving forward. And there was a preferred option by the district. And as I recall, it was option 1C, which was roughly about $3 to $4 million at the time. Our goals, if this becomes a priority, would go back and confirm those assumptions, confirm the ideal solution, and then ultimately refresh this price and study moving forward.
So Jared, I've got a question on this one. I don't know of another program that really services more people in our area than our swim, because of the things that you brought in, the youth and the seniors. And then I think because of the facility that we have right now, we don't even have JV, the sub-varsity swimming coming up for this next season. So this seems to me to be a priority area for us. But also, there's some logistics things that I've been visiting with people about having people from off campus on your campus all the time. You know, until COVID happened, security was a really big deal this time last year, and making all of our campuses more secure. So to me, it would be kind of maybe beneficial at this time to see what an off-campus facility would look like. What kind of cost? I know Temple just built one, but that's not really the type of facility that we would like. We want something better than that, but something that both high schools can use and we can grow into, and maybe have even more partnerships with some of the city things. I don't know about that stuff, but I think it's probably time to look at an off-site solution to this. Number one, because we can keep that program running for the year while we're building the other facility. Number two, this would give us space on that campus where we don't have much space to utilize this area in the future. And it seemed as though with one of these renovation things, we'd be taking up part of a practice field there behind the natatorium, and we don't have much practice field space at Belton High School as it is. So maybe it's time to maybe look at the off-campus site, see what the cost would be.
Agreed. And if you could go to page 27 of the report, we actually did that comparison as we were going through this. And it's something that we always try and keep in mind of, okay, if you're adding money to this facility, in essence, what does a new facility cost? So we had just goal one of replacing the existing structure. Two was the variations of the program increase, but then we compared it to a new indoor pool or a new comprehensive facility. So those numbers are there, and it is definitely something we could evaluate, that the district could evaluate, as well as the operational cost on that side.
Ty, I think that's a really good point. That's one of the reasons why we're going to get into talk a little bit about bond projects and have Jennifer update us on how we use bond funds and stuff. And I think there's an immediate concern because we have some growing safety concerns, obviously, with the natatorium and some structural concerns with the natatorium. But we also have the logistics of opening a new high school and providing swim facilities for all of our kids in the district and having them be able to access them, not to mention our club swim and our, I can't remember what we call it, Sunrise Swim, are others that join that use our swim center on a regular basis. And I know those are integral parts of our community. And so in talking about these and having Jared go through these are big deals for us. And as we are talking as a facilities committee more and more, we have to keep not only the immediate in mind, but the long-term in mind for this type of a situation. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
And hey, this is David, just so everyone knows, for those who are not aware, we actually have some, I'll say, fairly serious issues with the membrane on the roof now. We have 3 sections that have separated, and it's actually blowing rain up under there, and it's down below. So I have found a company, which is a miracle, called Signature Structures, who will come out and do an assessment and make repairs to that. But I just see this membrane that we currently have on that Summit system continuing to fail.
So in short, that's the 50-page summary of all the projects. And it would be, for y'all, if we're happy to help support any discussion or additional questions that you have, or if there's a focus that we need to jump in and take a look further, swim center or, addressing growth, happy to do that at the will of the board and the facilities committee.
If it's okay, Ty, I wanted to see if Sam and Stephanie had anything to weigh in on. There are resident experts in the athletic things that were brought up and also the CTE items that were brought up. Do y'all have anything to add to what Jared presented?
Well, thank you. That was very comprehensive. Jared and I did have opportunity in 2018 to sit down. Since then, over the past few years, we have been preparing for the new pathways that go into effect this year. And those are intended to align more to the high skill, high wage, in demand. And so we've already started a list of kind of our wish list as well to better align to that. I think what is currently in the plan is very foundational. We do have some safety concerns, which I think are being addressed this summer with our construction and welding labs, but would like to continue to talk about our large pathways like health science, which is our largest one, being able to create a simulation lab for those students at Belton High School, as well as some of our programs that are starting to grow, like engineering, and our finance and business pathways as well. And of course, the ag farm is also an area that we know the growth is coming, and so we know that we need some areas out there to grow as well.
That was one I wanted to ask about. I guess there towards right before Matt came on board, we went out and toured that facility, and I think David and the guys put together some numbers, and it came in a little over $1 million, which was a little bit more than what we were kind of thinking when we were standing around after kicking dirt that day. But that seemed to be something that it would be nice. I don't know what we have to do officially, but to get that one on the list, to maybe start doing a harder look at that one. I can definitely see that being something that's affecting a lot of kids in a positive way, and we're busting at the seams out there. We're full.
Yes, we are full, and we know with youth students coming online at Lake Belton High School, our ag pathway is our second largest pathway out of the 14 that we offer, and so we do know that that is going to be an area where students are going to want to plug into that.
Yep, agreed.
And I'll speak on the natatorium. Currently, right now, we cannot offer swim lessons unless it is in the summer because we don't have the pool space when it comes to club pool with our club program, which is about at 115 to 120 members. We are at capacity in our club team. Taking the pool offline for any point in time. I know Temple's running this right now. We were actually in an agreement to let them use our pool for practices because UMHB, they could not use UMHB's pool. And Temple's pool, we did it in the case we ran a situation where we'd have to, they might need to return the favor to us. Their pool is not adequate to fit our club program or the amount with Lake Belton and Belton High School being on board right now. At some point, we're not going to be able to run sub-varsity swim next year. And then down the road, we're going to have to make cuts to the high school varsity teams just because of pool space and availability. But they're also, since we are a school district owned club, all the area club teams are folding right now during this COVID-19 situation. So people are beating down our doors wanting to join our club at this point in time too. And the aerobics program that goes in there, a lot of people utilize that program during the day. And there's it's a great community resource. Just we're at capacity with it right now.
Thank you, Sam. And so Robert and Jared, anything else that you want to add on capital improvements project list that y'all went over?
Nothing from my side.
Great.
All right, we ready to move along? Thank you, Jared. Awesome. Anybody have any questions? Janet, Jeff, anybody?
Just a couple for, I guess, maybe cleanup items more than anything else to remove off of, because that list goes back to, what was it, 2018? Actually, 2015, I think, is when it started, if you go through the documents. And we talked about this on the last one. I mean, for now, can we just, that gym destruction behind admin, I mean, can we just remove that? I mean, it's, for now, that's just it's a done issue. We're not going to be able to do anything with that. And Tyler, what we decided in the last meeting, but it keeps showing back up. And then the other one, the fields, as far as the putting in the artificial turf, I think when we built Lake Belton High School, and given the challenges of artificial turf at Belton High School because of the soil conditions, one of the reasons I think we gave, and Coach Morgan agreed to go with artificial over there, was that gave us both sets of fields to use, you know, for practices and tournaments and games. So we didn't need to go back and build another set of AstroTurf fields. Is my memory right on that one?
No, that's 100% correct, because in the events of rain, we can double up over there at Lake Belton for practice and especially games. We don't have to cancel. Say if it rains just in Belton, we don't have to cancel if there's a game scheduled that night. So that gives us that flexibility. And then when you look at $5.6 million and to just do those two projects, that's outrageous amounts of money to spend on those programs. to me, I think that one's definitely one that could be put on the back burner, especially with the addition of Lake Belton.
Yeah, and I was just talking about from a cleanup standpoint. So, because I know that we're going to go into, I think, Dr. Smith later, long-range planning. Some of these things, I mean, I don't know what you do with them, but I guess because in my business world, I hate seeing the same thing show up on a report when I know we're not going to do anything with it. But those two items to me just seem like they need to go away for now.
I agree.
Yeah, I think so. Just from an administrative standpoint, one of the things was I wanted to be able to go through these things and have this type of discussion. Ms. Land and Dr. Muller have been great in talking a little bit about needs for the future for us. And I think we're at a point while we go into this strategic planning process next year, is we're going to need to do another deep dive into our facilities and all of this and really come up with that the right priority list for the current board and administration and public. And these are a foundation piece for us and good refreshers for us, but some of these things need to be removed at this time. And I totally agree with that.
And something else that I've been sitting here thinking about this whole time is that now, once you get more familiar, Matt, with the district and get boots on the ground more and more and more and have more visits with people, you'll have a good idea and be able to bring your hot items to the table as well. And I'm anxious to, when we get to kind of get that going as well too. So
I got a lot of thoughts. I'm ready to share them one of these days. We'll get there. I'm excited. If it's okay, I'll jump into 3B on the demographer presentation. I don't have anything to project, and I don't think y'all want me to go into an hour-long demographer presentation again, but just a couple of summary pieces for us in all of this. I appreciate the capital improvements project list, because we do have improvements that need to be made to our facilities. And I don't think that, honestly, even that list is as comprehensive as it needs to be right now. Ty, to your point, I have growing concerns on some of our aging facilities, specifically in the south part of our district right now, that I think we need to dive into and really talk about, and how those things match up with the demographer presentation. So in highlight of the demographer presentation, y'all know we have growth in the north, but we also have growth in the south. And there's probably not going to be a one size fits all that we're able to say, hey, this is our answer for the future. We're probably going to need additional facilities in both the north and the south. And y'all know that there's a large population up there in the Tarver area that's growing like crazy. And then we have obviously down there at Chisholm Trail that we're adding portables to add and to manage some things. And then we thinking through what could be on specific mines in the future is where we have property located. And we talked a little bit about our Northgate property earlier, but just a reminder, we also have that Hubbard Branch property out there, which is closer to Miller Heights in that area, where we do anticipate some growth in the Hubbard Branch area. We have the Loop 121 project down there off of Shanklin Road. And we've been in consultation with the city of Belton and talking about running utilities out there. They're real interested in knowing what we want to build out there. And we've got 100 acres, and we've been trying to say to them, we don't know exactly what we're going to need out there. We do know we're going to need additional facilities, but we have things to consider with that facility. And I know Dr. Battershell has brought up the couple of the concerns about having a jail right nearby, and what do you put on a property with 100 acres with a jail right nearby. And so we have to think through all of those things. And then we obviously have the 2nd Street area there as well, which when you take a look at the demographer presentation, the 2nd Street area where we currently have our ag facility, that doesn't help us as much, from my opinion, with some of the growth areas that we have in the school district. So we have some properties out here that we have to start talking about. And when Sam brings up and Jared brings up natatorium and offsite, I am worried about Lake Belton High School kids being able to get access to Belton High School, to the natatorium that we currently have, and us having enough room and enough have taken care of the safety concerns and the structural concerns that have been brought up too. So when we talk about demographer and growth, I think it would be remiss of us not to think about all these capital improvement projects in the middle of all this. So quick summary, we got growth north and south. We've got some properties that are available here, but we have a growing need in our school district to not only invest in growth, but also in the investment in some of these older buildings.
I guess something I didn't think about, they'd purchased that land, that 109 acres out there on Shanklin before, I think right a little bit before I came on. I didn't think about when they let those folks go out there, they just let them go. They walk free. The person, you know, the people that are being let go out of jail, I didn't think about that at that time. And when Robin brought it up, I was like, okay, wonder how we would, you know, how that would work being so close right across the street. So that is definitely a concern on that deal. So is that all we have there on that, Matt?
Yes, sir.
So we're going to go to review and discuss our 2017 bond projects, the completion of Lake Belton High School and the other. We kind of got this on Monday, but Dr. Muller and Jared, y'all show.
Okay. Again, if you'll let me do just a real quick introduction, I do want to clarify just a couple of things. I think I had been indicating that substantial completion for Lake Belton High School would be achieved toward the end of May, perhaps 1st of June. As they're working through some of these punch list items, it's looking more like we're going to have probably substantial completion in mid-June, maybe a few days after mid-June. And the reason I say that is because by contract, you have final completion 30 days after you achieve substantial completion. And so that would put final completion in mid-July. So the board would probably receive or review an action item for final acceptance and closeout and authorizing final payment probably in August. So that's kind of the timeline on Lake Belton High School. For Belton High School Orchestra, it's looking like substantial completion perhaps in mid-July, or I'm sorry, also in mid-June with maybe a final completion 30 days after that. So I also told you that they were going to do an asphalt pour at Belton High School last week. Because of the weather, that has been delayed, and that will actually take place, I believe, day after tomorrow. Also at Lake Belton High School, from the RCO log, the change log, we still are waiting on pricing for the classroom security curtains, for the 3M film, for the lanyard, for the lockdown system, and also for fencing around the football field. And the fencing around the football field is primarily designed to control access to the field itself. So with that, I will turn it over to Jared.
I think the only thing that I have to add is we've been on site and continue to be on site, both architects, engineers, design team to review and make sure that the contractors installing the work correctly at Lake Belton and Belton High School Orchestra projects. As we talk about finishing the project, our teams punched about 50% of Lake Belton High School. So it's starting to roll through completion, but yes, we anticipate there's probably, another 3 to 4 weeks of time to just roll through that last 50%, which includes, everything from not only the main building in the school that everybody's focused on, but the ancillary buildings, track, those type of elements from there. We are working through elements, and one of the updates that I had found out after Dr. Muller and I had talked is the lanyard is with Lake Belton High School, you're getting subscribed to actually a phone system emergency that will actually work district-wide with the system. So it's something that project is bringing on to support the entire district, which will be nice for them there. And then orchestra, and kind of recapping from last night or from Monday is, yes, that project is advancing in construction, and just timing wise of getting things like the winger cabinets and some of the casework, they're just not hitting the production time right. So that will probably finish early from the original completion, but it won't be, next week kind of thing. We're thinking kind of mid-July timeframe for that one, that they'll be able to get that one done and completed for punch. So exciting time for both projects.
Yeah, you guys are doing great. Very, very proud of both of those.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Dr. Muller. All right. So now we bring in the money Jennifer Land, let's talk a little bit about bond funds used and bond funds interest savings.
Good evening, everyone. So I am, let me see. I have just an update of one of the charts that I went over with you all in our budget workshop. It's the bond 2017 authorization. Rachel, do I have ability to share my screen? If not, it's fine. I can just talk through it. But in that chart, I showed what the total amount of our bond authorization was, how much money we had received to date, and then I listed our project costs. And in that presentation, Lake Belton High School, we're still working on budgeted costs of $125 million. And that includes not only the direct construction costs, but also all of the FF&E and the architect costs, as well as other ancillary costs.
Jennifer,
So
present now, if that would help you, I think you can share.
Thank you. Can you see that okay? It should say bond 2017 bond or 149,700,000 authorization. So I just updated this, and as of Friday, our estimated remaining funds based on our interest revenue alone and some costs that we've already seen come in a little bit lower for the 3 projects, the gym, the Fine Arts Center, as well as Charter Oak, we have about $5 million that we could use for other projects. That being about 4.5 million coming from interest revenue. I do want to point out that, again, this is looking at Lake Belton High School budgeted costs, and we have been able to realize some savings already on the FF&E side of Lake Belton High School. So I do anticipate this number will go up significantly. It may, it may even double depending on the cost from the high school, but just keep that in mind that I do expect that we will have some additional remaining funds over and above this 5 million. But right now the 5 million is what we're pretty certain about, given the fact that those other projects have closed out. And with that, it's all about prioritizing what we want or what we can do with these additional funds. What projects would we like to tackle in terms of utilizing these additional funds for? If you're ready for me to move into the next item, I can go ahead and talk about the new legislation regarding the bond changes. So I can bring that up as well.
Yep, we're ready.
Okay, so hopefully you all can see the document, legislative changes to bond ballot requirements. During the last legislative session, there were some changes that the legislature passed to require some certain language and to require separate propositions for special purposes. Again, general purpose bonds, they can include a lot of things. But there were things that were being included under the general purpose bonds that our legislators thought should be broken out into separate propositions. So these things, there are 6 special purposes, and these things include a stadium, a large stadium, so that's seating of more than 1,000 spectators, a natatorium, which we've had some discussion about, other recreational facilities other than a gym or playground or any play area, performing arts center. And we do have some districts who actually purchase housing for teachers. So that's one of those items that would have to be on a separate proposition. And then technology equipment. So those are the new requirements for ballots and the separation of these items on the ballot. What that really entails is by having those items separate on a ballot proposition, it makes it more pronounced, and in some cases a lot less likely that those things might be passed by our voters. Once you put that price tag and that standalone price tag on these items, it kind of catches voters' eyes, and it may increase the likelihood that those individual propositions do not pass. So also, when they talk about the facilities in terms of the fine arts or performing arts facility, it is primarily facilities that are used for those extracurricular items. If the facility is predominantly used for classrooms, then it can go into the general purpose section of a bond. But for the most part, when you talk about those performing arts centers, let me just give you an example. The Pittenger Fine Arts Center renovation that we had in the previous bond election, moving forward, that type renovation would have to be listed as a separate proposition. And that is because the special purpose category includes all improvements and renovations. So when we start thinking about what we would like, how we would like to prioritize those remaining bond funds, I think it would be prudent for us to really look at the things that do not necessarily, or that we can get done so that we do not necessarily have to go out to our voters and ask for those items on a separate bond proposition. Also, I just wanted to give you a little bit of information regarding the required ballot statement that has to be included in all bond elections. We now will have to include a statement saying that this is a property tax increase on any bond election. So again, just brief information regarding changes to the ballot requirements and how that's going to impact us moving forward with our propositions, and how that relates to how we might want to structure our prioritization of items for these remaining bond funds.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. And the reason we had that on the agenda item is I know when we did our budget workshop recently, when we talked about the bond interest savings, things like that, I know that that's probably on your mind as board members of how can we use this money. And so really the whole purpose of today's meeting is to be able to go through long-term, short-term needs facility-wise in our district, and to really try to put some context around it about some of these big projects that have already been presented tonight would have to be separate election items in the future based on our recent legislation, and it wasn't that way in the past. So thank you, Jennifer, for helping us through that.
All right, so can I mention another project that was asked to me earlier in some discussions? Once we have the two high schools going full Friday night lights, that's going to really make that press box situation acute at that point, because it's really dated big time. So when I was teaching in Killeen, Leo Buckley Stadium is ancient as well, a lot older than our stadium, and they basically had that same press box we have. And they did a project where they tore it down, built another one, and they also were able to add ticketing, things like that over there. They could, and I think even if we did it right, we could move our athletic director and his staff in that facility as well. And then along with that, getting a new locker room situation built on the south side of the stadium for Lake Belton to have a nicer place to come, because that's going to be their home. And so those are two things too that will, we'll need to talk about in a bond setting. Not, we won't have the money to do either one of those projects, but those were two things I think we need to start getting our focus on because I think 2 years from now, when we are doing the Friday Night Lights, our facilities over there are adequate at best. We need to do some improving over there.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Ty, because I was under the impression, this is me still being the newbie and learning, but I was under the impression that when these discussions happened, that Belton High School was planned to be the Friday Night Lights center for all football games in the district, and not hosting at Lake Belton High School for varsity football events and stuff.
Yeah, we're not going to have Friday night at Lake Belton, so we'll both be at that one, and so it's going to get it's going to get double. It's going to be used 10 weeks out of the year, and but like I said, they've renovated some of that locker room areas, but it's not varsity level really when you go back and look at that stuff for the locker room for Lake Belton. And really something else someone brought out is that our guests have to walk out of the stadium to go to their locker room. We lose security of those people when they get off of, it's really, they kind of go off site to go to their locker room to dress whenever, that happens. So those are just two things that are going to need to be addressed, but those are going to be big ticket items down the road. Really doing a real renovation of that press box, tearing that old one down, building another one, moving the athletic director's people over there, ticketing over there, and then a whole nother locker room facility for Lake Belton and the guests too. That's just something I think we need to start thinking about. All right, so let me see whether I can see this. All right, so David Bennett, we're going to review and discuss our favorite list, the $3.5 million that we approved last year.
Okay, so everybody, I hope got the, I don't know if someone can share that document. There we go. So I'll go through my narrative first. I won't read the whole thing, but obviously if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Just to highlight, so we have completed the 3 gym projects for the HVAC, and those are working well. We've completed the administration, security desk, and access controls there at the front lobby. We have relocated the marquee there at Loop 121 off of right in front of the high school. That has been moved back. We've also installed the new marquee for Belton Middle School. I'm trying to find someone to get the letters off of that, by the way, because it still has some December activities from the 9 when we took that down. And also over at Belton Middle School, so we had a list of things to do to convert that. The marquee, the signage on the front of the building, that's will probably be up within a couple of weeks. And we have done a lot of painting, sort of painting over some of those number 9s in the interior hallways. And I think Sam has got the graphics on going for that. We metal over there for the parents drop off, which is actually over there in the parking lot where the band practice slot is. So everything over there is looking pretty good. We met over there today, and Stacy's wanting to convert a couple of the computer labs to better utilize that space. So we got a little demo to do over there, which isn't much. And I think they got new furniture ordered for those 2 rooms. Over at the PAC, we were going to, we 2 things. We've already replaced the lighting in there, so that was a huge improvement. And then we have painted all the concrete floors with epoxy coating, and then we are putting new carpet down the aisleways in that front as you enter the PAC. That'll have a painting the hall, restrooms. We replaced restroom project that was not on the list, which we have done. Just to let you know, last couple of big runs we've had flooding in the office area of Lakewood Elementary. So we found out what the problem is there, and we've got that taken care of. So as far as the list is concerned, we've got about 45% of the items completed. My guys, I tell you, I'll give them kudos. They've really been working hard. Southwest Elementary has been a big focus for us for the last couple of weeks. If you'll remember, Originally, we were gonna just work on one hallway, the older classroom hallway, and upgrade it. Now we are pretty much upgrading everything on the inside of the building. So we're painting all the hallways, doing some painting in the cafeteria, replacing doors, new signage, new flooring throughout. So when we get through with that project, I think it'd be a great walkthrough one afternoon for the facilities meeting to see what that looks like. I think everybody's going to be very pleased with that. I already am, and we're still doing demo, but it actually looks better with everything demoed out of there. So that's been a big focus for us. Then you can see on the list the projects that are currently underway. Anybody have any questions about any of those or anything on the list? No.
Dave, what are the principals and the staff saying at the schools that got their new ACs installed?
Well, the people that are in the gyms really haven't been back. They are moving while they're doing waxing and things. So they're moving a lot of the furniture into the gyms. I will tell you, the custodial ladies love it because it is cold in there. Yesterday, index was 106 yesterday afternoon, and we had a space temperature in there of 75 degrees over at Leon Heights.
That's so great.
It works. Yeah, it works. And, you know, that actually, the final numbers on that, all three gyms, I think, came in like $115,000. So, yeah, we're proud of that one. Thank Phil Wessels when you see him, because he worked hard. Any other questions?
Well, David, obviously every time we do this, we sing your praises, but it's because you guys deserve it. You guys are doing a great job. It's fun I did a lot of driving during the COVID thing on the lonely days around town, and you could definitely see sidewalks at different places. It's all over where you guys are just bouncing all over, getting stuff done, and we really do appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. I tell you, I couldn't do this without Oscar Peruman. I don't know how many of you really know Oscar, but I gave Oscar the list and got the purchase orders done and asked him what else you need, and he is directing those guys on a daily basis, and it's amazing to see how much work they've really done in the last 2 weeks.
How many guys do you have in your maintenance department?
I've got 23.
23.
Yeah, cool. Not all of them are real craftsmen. I have probably half of that number is true craftsmen, electricians, carpenters, etc. And then I have just some general laborers. But you know, we've got those general labor type guys and put paintbrushes in their hands, and they're turned out to be pretty good painters. Mm.
Well, definitely when we get the meat situation figured out nationally, and we get some looser regulations, I'd like to feed your guys a ribeye lunch these days just to thank them for all their hard work. I think that'd be fun to do something like that.
I'm sure they would appreciate that.
Yep. Well, thank you. All right, moving on. So I guess on number 6, we've got a summary discussion and our next steps. Matt?
Yes, sir. So I appreciate everybody in going through things today. I think one of the things that is going to be important for this group moving forward, I know Robin, when she was here, had heavily invested with y'all and talking about some of the projects that David's been working on and getting crossed off the list. And there was an investment in some money there. And we're super proud of that work and excited. I think the kids deserve it. And I think we have some facilities that needed it. And so I'm very proud of that. I think our growing challenge is going to be on our facilities committee agendas moving forward that we're going to have to keep working through is how do we thoughtfully invest money that we might have so that we best position ourselves for the future regarding facilities in Belton ISD. And we're going to have to take into account the demographic report and where we're going to need growth. We're going to have to take into account that capital projects list that Jared presented. And we're going to need to probably at our next facilities committee meeting, in my mind, really get into some deep discussion about priorities and how we are going to prioritize some things if in fact we are going to use some of the bond savings for investment into facilities. And so I appreciate y'all sitting through and listening to it all tonight. Hopefully you got a big picture of, you know, the demography report, you know that the capital improvements project report that we have currently in front of us, you know, the natatorium challenges, you know, the CTE facility challenges, and you know, the equity perceptions that are going to pop up with the opening of a beautiful new Lake Belton High School and all of this. So we've got some real tough long-term decisions to make, I think, as a facilities committee coming up. And I appreciate y'all being able to listen through and hear kind of the big picture of all of this as we move forward. And that's all I had for this evening.
All right, is there any other questions or concerns with anything, anybody? I guess the two main things is going to be figuring out when we can get our hands on that 5 million, how quick we can start getting some of that stuff approved and done. And then I think moving forward, we need to see how long down the road our next viable ramp up for a bond is going to be. You know, is it 2 years, 3 years? And then how much will we be needing and how much can we ask for? I think those are two things for sure we need to start getting into pretty prime focus. So other than that, I think we're done and we are adjourned. Everybody have a nice evening.